Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Tease video. And the 9.2 PTR has been out for some time. There have been a massive amount of updates and changes and new additions to classes and the game in general. And if you'd like to make sure that you're staying up to date with all of those changes, make sure you hit the subscribe button because I am updating those changes to my channel basically in real time. But in today's video, I wanted to cover a ranged DPS PvP tier list. How are the ranged DPS matching up in terms of competitive play right now moving into 9.2 so that you can take that information and improve your experience moving forward, maybe get one of these classes ready to go if it strikes your interest, or maybe potentially reconsider an option if it's not looking too fantastic. So the way that I've broken my tier list down today is S tier. This is going to be phenomenal, fun. It's going to be unbeatable. It's going to have a lot of options. A tier is solid, has a moderate amount of options, is going to be strong. B is kind of average. You'll be able to find a comp and make something work, but it's not going to be kind of like the pick of the litter where everybody's just diving in to get you into their group and stuff. Potential with high risk means that there are seeing things and signs that could mean that it is an S tier, but it could also mean that it's an avoid tier. So that's what potential high risk is for me at the moment. This tier may also be a spec that I just haven't seen enough of yet on the PTR because, again, the testing on the PTR hasn't been completely fleshed out. So that's where those specs will be going. Affliction Warlock. Now, this is a specialization whose set bonuses aren't too fantastically impacting the specialization. The double set bonuses might get you a little bit more sustained damage. It really depends on how the meta shapes up. But for Affliction, I have not seen anything that's telling me it's going to be a shining star. The changes to its Death Bolt now kind of remove its option to compete with the amount of burst damage in the burst meta that we're seeing in 9.1.5 that I think is likely to continue into 9.2. So for me, I would say that it's about average. You may be able to find a composition with it and a couple of comps with it, like the Shadow Play composition, or maybe a Rogue Lock composition potentially with some of the changes coming into Assassination. But it's still continuing to have the same weaknesses in my mind that it has right now. And there hasn't been anything that's like super stellar to me with set bonuses or legendaries that is really striking something that's, wow, this is going to be an amazing specialization for 9.2. Arcane Mage. Similar to the Affliction Warlock, you're still carrying over a tremendous amount of pressure with the Arcanosphere and the Barrage Execute Legendary. You can get these really big combo one-shots, but you are still locked down into one school of magic, still have the same weaknesses. You don't have the Dragon's Breath of the Fire Mage to set up your crowd control. You don't have the consistent nuke potential of the Frost Mage, so you're kind of like this one-hit wonder, which means you're going to have a couple of comps to synergize, something like with Demo Warlocks, which I think could actually be very strong, maybe Ellie Shamans, but it's really lacking some synergies, and it's nothing I've seen that's like jumping off the page to me just yet for Arcane. I did see a couple of people running it on the PTR, which makes me think that you will have options, but I would be a bit hesitant to put it any higher than just it's going to be an average spec with a few options at the moment. Beastmastery Hunter, doing a tremendous amount of damage at the moment on the PTR, similar to 9.1.5. Unfortunately, its set bonuses aren't going to fantastically impact Beastmastery Hunter, and this is mostly attributed to the fact that you have PvP modifiers nerfing your kill command damage and buffing your Cobra Shot damage to the point where your kill command is almost a button you avoid pressing in PvP other than to charge your pet to the target. If these modifiers were changed, then the set bonus would interact a lot better with the class in PvP. Your double legendaries, however, are going to be fantastic. You're going to have access to massive damage legendaries through the Venthyr Covenant legendary, as well as being able to get the Stratagem Feign Death for defense, maybe double dipping for double damage if you really want to be doing a lot of damage. So to me, I think Beastmastery, although its set bonuses aren't going to be kind of the most impactful, for PvP, the amount of raw pressure and damage that's going to do is going to put it up into a stellar position. However, will you have a lot of comp options? While I think it's going to be a competitive S tier specialization, especially with comps like Jungle, like it currently is, as a standalone spec trying to match up with other classes, it may struggle. I do think that because it's so powerful in that comp, it's justifiable to be on S tier. Just take that into account that you may notice some lack of flexibility. It still has some. I think that KFC potentially, maybe even DK Hunter, with Death Knights feeling a bit stronger now in 9.2. Maybe you'll have a couple of options like these melee plus range. So it's reasonably flexible. I think it's feasible to say that it's going to be up there on the S tier. Demonology Warlock. This is a spec that has kind of always been on the bottom, not really paid attention to. I recently made one of my own on 9.1.5 and actually have a lot of fun with it. And in 9.2, you're going to be double dipping into getting these massive demon bolts, and you have a ton of crowd control, which is something that I was actually impressed with when I played it. I was a bit worried to touch it for a while because it didn't seem competitively viable, seemed like a ton of keybinds, awkward spec to get behind. But as soon as I got on it, figured out the basics of setting up my decimating bolts, I can now see the power and I'm really enjoying it. And in the next patch, I think that it's going to be a fantastic spec. It is going to be cranking out massive numbers with amazing crowd control. And I'm looking forward to it, almost to the point where I'm on my stream on twitch.tv/Subities, I was trying to do 0 to hero right now on Demo Lock. If I manage to pull it off, I might actually switch over to it, because the double legendary is getting access to stacking up your Shadow Bolt to make your Demon Bolt deal more damage. You have so many different modifiers to make your Demon Bolt deal more damage that when you get the big decimating bolt off with your procs, like, you're going to absolutely destroy people. I think it's going to be very good at the moment. I put it on my number 1 for my top 7 specs video, and I think it's going to be an S tier specialization with a lot more options this time around. Destruction. This is one that I haven't seen a lot of on the PTR, and it was actually the main reason I made potential high risk, because its set bonuses will be summoning in extra infernals. This has potential for you to just absolutely rain chaos and destroy people in PvP, but because I haven't seen it, and Destro hasn't had the best track record for being hyper competitive at the moment, that I'm putting it on potential high risk. This is like a volatile one. This is one where, like, if you're a Destro lover, you're going in with the high risk, it might pay out really big for you. You might be hitting the highest point you've ever hit for it. And if it doesn't, you're still a Destro lover and you're going to play it anyways. But if you were on the fence with trying to pick up Destro and it hits the real low point, you may struggle with having made that decision. So I'm putting on potential high risk. Elemental Shaman. This is another one that I think is an easy up here on the S tier. It's going to be getting a tremendous amount of sustained damage. You're going to be having permanent fire elementals. You're going to be getting a lot of haste from your legendaries as the Necrolord Covenant. You're still going to have your blast one-shots. You have the option to go Vesper Totem. I'm seeing 60k Vesper Totem, like complete 100 KOs if you want that as an option. So you got some flexibility. You're going to fit with a lot of classes. You fit right in with the burst meta. Basically, everything is just getting better for you. Your sustain and your burst is getting higher. Ellie's going to be a great spec. Fire Mage, another one, and maybe we should order these from like left to right in terms of power. I would say maybe I'd put Demo at the bottom of the S tier just because of its track record, but I do think that it has a lot of potential. Fire is definitely going to be at the top for me right now in the S tier. It still just does so much damage during its combustion. Being able to have access to the Necrolord Covenant specific legendaries and stacking that with another damage legendary, it's going to make you really tanky. You get a tremendous amount of burst damage off. You've got really good synergies actually with Kyrian Druids to provide. You can play Night Fae as well to provide you an extra enhancement of haste, so you're just casting so fast, resetting your combust so fast, and just pumping out insane damage, and your set bonuses are aimed towards your combust. Everything about it is just getting better from 9.1.5 to 9.2. It's an expectation for me that RMP is not going to be going anywhere. Fire Mage is still definitely on top. Frost Mage was doing a lot of damage, a lot of consistent damage, just spamming out frost bolts. Still potentially has the risk of kind of being run down and bullied, but when they activate that Necrolord Covenant ability, the Deathborn, you're going to need to be aware of it, either CC it, get away from it. It's going to be a threat. For me, I'm a bit hesitant to put it on S tier. I think that you're going to be limited to kind of double caster compositions. I don't think it's going to fit into the Rogue Mage meta, competing with fire, and I don't think it'll fit necessarily with the Windwalkers either, that kind of Arcane has paired up with as its main matchup. So I think it's a solid spec, could do really well, but it's not crescenting over into the S tier just yet for me. Again, this is a prediction tier list. There could be changes that come through, and I'll do my best to update this. And if you want to stay updated, make sure you hit the subscribe button. But at the moment, I think it's just a solid spec. Marksmanship Hunter is going to have the same benefits of BM Hunter. You're going to be able to stack into damage legendaries from the Necrolord Covenant, as well as defense with the Feign Death, or double dip for massive damage on your rapid fire. So you could have a lot of fun with that. The set bonuses, I'm not sure if they're going to work out too well in PvP with the way trick shots work. They could. For me, I'm a little bit of a hard sell on putting on S tier because I think it could be a fragile spec that a lot of these other specs are just going to erase out of the game, although it could erase them back. So it's kind of the glass cannon, right? But I think because it has a weakness, it holds it back from being on the Omega tier. And it's just going to be a solid spec that you could pick up. Balanced Druid, another specialization that I think is doing fantastic. I tested it myself personally, running the Kyrian Balanced Druid, running the Dreambinder, getting millions of star surges out for massive burst damage. Felt really fun, strong, powerful. You still got the Kindred Spirit synergies. You're going to be able to have the option to go with Nightface synergies as well now because versatility isn't as prevalent. So you can get the haste buffs like things like Moonkin Mage I see being very powerful. Ellie Moonkin being very powerful. I think Moonkin's going to be in a great spot. We can't forget the Moonkin Demon Hunter. These types of compositions, it's looking really good. And then finally we have Shadow. Shadow is a monster. It's doing so much damage. Even right now in 9.1.5, but in 9.2, the set bonuses and stuff, it's enabling it to do a lot of extra damage, getting access just to the baseline Necrolord Covenant Legendary, matching that up with extra damage legendaries. Shadow's got great utility, things like Shadow Rogue, Shadow Warrior, Shadow Fire Mage, maybe Shadow Boomy, Shadow Demo. I think it's going to be a great spec. Probably comes in somewhere around here, maybe slightly better than BM Hunter at this point. So this is going to be my tier list here. You can see that there's a lot of amazing specs and solid ones. Some that I think are going to come in at an average point. They have their little niche that they can try to make work, but they're not as well-rounded as the other options. And you got your wild card here with whether or not this thing could be the best spec in the game or completely trash. But Fire Mage, Moonkin, Shadow, BM, Ellie, Demo. I feel safe putting them in that order in terms of strength. Frost, Marksmanship Hunter on the solid tier, Affliction, Arcane on the average tier, and then Destro and Potential high risk. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave it with a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts on what you're seeing in 9.2, because again, I want this to be a great resource for everybody to enhance their experience with World of Warcraft and to be as accurate as possible. And of course, 9.2 is a massive patch, doing my best to wrangle in all of the information for it. And if you'd like to watch me live, twitch.tv/SupaTees every day, doing 0 to Heroes, doing rank 1 pushes, doing viewer games, the whole shebang. And other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one.